Hello. I'm a little sick, you'll have to pardon my voice. Not that you know what I sound like anyway, unless you've watched other videos or know me personally. But, I'm obsessed with music and have wanted to talk about music on YouTube for a long time. But I haven't gotten around to it and hadn't figured out quite the way I want to do it, but now I have. So I'm going to do it. This will be the inaugural episode of a series of artist guides, where I take an artist whose catalog I know very well, and an artist I like a lot, obviously, and basically explain my experiences with the artist, give, the history of them to the extent that I know, and then I guess describe the various records and say which one to start out with. Something along those lines. And so the first artist that I will be covering will be the one and only Sophie, as in like Sophie Xeon, X-E-O-N, the British music producer and one might say founder of the hyperpop genre. I don't really know. I'm not a massive hyperpop listener. I'm getting there. But at the moment, Sophie is really like my true love as far as that goes. I'm really more of like an artist diver than in many ways. But with other artists I might have physical media. I don't have very much. I mean, this one isn't even a Sophie CD, but it's kind of related. I just have a CDR that I burned. Because one of the albums has never been released on CD, other than a really expensive thing. But anyway, so, I first encountered Sophie. I think it must have been a friend I used to have, my best friend back then, knew this song Immaterial by Sophie. And would put it on. It's sort of like a very electronic-y pop song. One could almost say dance, but it's not like dance music. Although Sophie is a dance music maker. And that is the most dance music of the songs on that album, but it's pretty weird. Lots of like production tricks and things. But anyway, I was like, whoa, this is really something. I don't think I'm ready for this yet, sonically. But I gradually, and I think I watched a video of hers around when she died. We'll get to that. Or shortly thereafter. Not that I knew that she died. Maybe I feel like I vaguely remember seeing some kind of headline about it when it happened, but I don't. It's nothing more than a very flimsy, vague memory. So I don't know if I could really count on it. But yeah, I think I watched some kind of video on her, although I didn't know much about her. And learned how she was like a really mysterious figure. Nobody knew who she was, and she was producing so much music by different people, and then put out an incredible album, and then disappeared from this mortal plane. But then a few years later, I guess, I just encountered her more and more and saw that like so many people like loved her and she was like a deeply respected artist. Some say the queen of hyperpop, although I'm no person to make a judgment on that. But I guess I finally, after trying her out for a while, it was 2 summers ago, the summer of 2024, while on a trip in Europe actually. A lot of my family, I'm basically the child of European immigrants, first or second generation. So I've been there a good bit. But, yeah. So I guess I'll go, and then, I mean, yeah, and then on that trip I was like, oh, it's clicking. And then, got obsessed, and the first single from her posthumous album came out. The track Berlin Nightmare came out as a single, the second single, 1 or 2 weeks after I left Berlin. So that's kind of funny, if only. But anyway, so here's what I know about Sophie. So I don't know where she's from in England. I think it's England, but I don't know where it is. Everything says Scotland, but her family has said it's not Scotland. So I don't really know where it is. I'm pretty sure it's not London though. But so she kept things pretty private, so, you know, it makes sense. But I think she was born somewhere in England in, what, the 80s? Late 80s? She's a millennial. And as a child got really into dance music. Like, Dad was taking Sophie and her siblings to raves and stuff. Or at least festivals. And she just got incredibly obsessed with it at a young age. And when people get into things at a young age, they're the masters. when you know, years down the line, they're the ones who have the most natural connection to whatever they're doing. And do it in, you know, have a very, very pure connection with it. Untampered with, but, you know. Anyway, and I think from what I know, she was already DJing like wedding parties and stuff as like a teenager. But she was really isolated. Like, she didn't know anyone else who was into the kind of stuff she was into, other than, I guess, like her siblings who were like shared the passion a good bit, or at least did later on. I don't know at that age, but so she was really, really isolated from what I understand. And also trans, but not trans yet, you know. And so a trans woman. But, so that's not a very comfortable experience. Having been there myself, you know, not being fully comfortable with your body and how it's perceived and the role you're expected to play in society. Simply not being able to pull it off in a way that is makes you feel at peace with yourself. And so I guess she eventually moved to London, and well, I think she got into groups like Depeche Mode, who I do have some, oh darn, I don't have them right here. I do have 2 Depeche Mode CDs, been getting into them pretty recently, and Autechre, who I have yet to get into. There was a Moby CD she really liked, I remember hearing about when she was young. My mom's got a Moby CD. Exactly what else I can't quite remember. But she, so, you know, very into like electronic stuff. That's sort of her world. And then by the, I think she lived in Berlin. Lying about London, unintentionally. She spent a long time in Berlin, where she was in a group called Motherland, I believe, and there's several different groups called Motherland. Most of, I think their stuff has been scrubbed from the internet, largely. And from what I heard in some like YouTube comments on one of the only videos of their music on YouTube, you can hear, she was just the keyboardist, but you can hear the genesis, like early baby versions of later things she'd release in a few of those tracks. And then she worked with this other producer to make this, to do this project called S-Fire. Like the letter S and then fire. And they put a little bit of stuff out, but it's not like the... I think the other person had like a lot of influence in it, so it's not like really what you're getting from like Sophie normally. But, so when it really happened was in like 2010 or 2011, she put out, maybe on SoundCloud first, then put out in real life, an EP. An EP. Well, okay, I guess it's technically a single, but it plays like an EP. Because there's two versions of, I mean, it's dance music basically, and it is called Nothing More to Say, which I'll find the cover art for you for your convenience. And it is like dance music. Like, oh god, where have things gone? Sorry. Yeah, it started a trend with a lot of her, where her album covers are often just the name Sophie in that font. But they sometimes look a bit different. This one is white text on black. They will not always be like that. But it's like straight up like dance music, you know? Well, what's interesting about her is that, with the exception of the vocals, and on one track at the very end of her career, dogs barking, every single sound is synthesized. She's really meticulous with it, and it's in the fine details. She really... I think I heard someone say somewhere that there aren't too many people who truly know how to harness the full power of a synthesizer, because it can create any sound. Like, it's the most powerful instrument, you know? Which is what Sophie said in the one documentary about her. And what's beautiful about her music is that she expresses herself through the synthesizer. So, and that can happen in many ways. But I guess she decided very consciously. She's a very, very... I mean, I don't mean to say that they're dumb people, but she's an incredibly smart person. Or she was. You can tell that everything she did is very considered. And is full of intention behind it, which, you know, is worth a lot. And so, the first thing she puts out is, other than that S-Fire stuff, is this. Is like, you know, synth, upbeat, sort of like dance music. Or at least like, you know, like it's not like club music, but it's like built in that kind of language. So it starts out as sort of like poppy club music, I suppose. That's that first EP. Nothing More to Say. And then she begins releasing a few singles on SoundCloud and then putting them out. And I don't think that garnered much notice. These are really like what broke her out. And she's completely like, it's called Sophie. And I guess it's like British, but like nothing else is known. Like nobody knows anything. We'll come to later, I guess. But she began I think, I don't know if the first one was, maybe Bip. So she decides, she listens to electronic music. She does not listen to pop music, but she decided very consciously to make pop music. Because it is what garners the widest audience, you know? If you want to expose your work to people, you make it pop. Which is just a brilliant way of thinking about it, I suppose. Which is what she was good at. She's been a big influence on me in many ways. Not that I'm doing exactly what she's doing by any stretch, but in some aspects of her ethos, I suppose. And so she puts out some singles, which are eventually collected in what becomes her first album, out of 3 that she made while she was alive. And it's called Product. And the cover is white text on gray. Sometimes the gray is faded like on that one, other times the gray is just like a solid thing. And some CD covers are a bit different. But yeah. And I think she did like, I found one interview that she did with the BBC around, that album came out at like 2015, late 2015. And so the singles are coming out from like 2011 until then, gradually. And it was around this time that she hooked up. She began hooking up with PC Music, who were more founders of hyperpop, which, you know, just takes the elements of pop into like synth stuff and makes it like as extreme as like humanly possible, or digitally possible, I should say. And yeah, so she was one of the people who worked on this song called Hey QT, which was like a fake video ad. Well, I mean, the thing with PC Music is that they were like creating pop art, the cutting edge of music, and they're making pop art, which is absolutely what Sophie's doing on this first album. And so other people from there are like, A.G. Cook is a big one, who produced a lot of Charlie XCX's Brat album that was huge last year. And it's done a million other things. Like, that's not the only thing under his name. Hannah Diamond, who I also like a lot. All kinds of people. But so around this time as well, with these early singles, Sophie begins doing production for other people. And so she walks a lot of different lines, as you'll come to see as I talk about it, if you don't know already. And as the greatest artists, the most like lasting and important artists always do, they walk a lot of different lines very carefully, whether they know it or not. And she has a very small, concise discography as far as things go, almost like, I mean, not made over a 30-year period, but like basically the same quantity of material more or less as like D'Angelo, who just died. Rest in peace, and one of the best to ever do it. But although that is her catalog, and of course she's got a few features here and there on other songs, what's really immense is she produced tons of artists. She did hundreds, if not thousands, of sessions with artists like of all walks. She produced several tracks on the rapper Vince Staples' Big Fish Theory album, which Kendrick Lamar I'm not like like rap is not the main thing I listen to, although I am getting into it more. But for several years now, my favorite album of all time by anybody has been Kendrick Lamar's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. The only album of his I've ever really given a close listen to, as of yet, in full at least. I think it is an example of the true power of art, you know. Sure, art, you know, or of music, like, sure, a lyric can be used as a slogan in a protest, but the protest's gonna happen anyway, you know. But I think in terms of people dealing with their, helping other people learn to deal with their emotions. It's incredible. But anyway, sidetracking that. He raps over a Sophie beat, because he's featured on one of those songs. Kendrick Lamar raps over Sophie. Charlie XCX has an EP produced by Sophie, along with some other stuff. And the Vroom Vroom EP. Vroom Vroom is basically Charlie XCX and Sophie. Like, it's almost a collaboration. I mean, it is, but you know. Like everything, Bitch I'm Madonna, she produced like the verses on that, I think, by Madonna. And that's just like the first few things off the top of my head. There are hundreds upon hundreds of things. Hyde, that she produced. I think she said that she'd, if she got there like early to a session, she'd just like, you know, come up with a little like pattern, like on like her, you know, little digital keyboard setup. Come up with a little like melody or something, and then that would often form the foundation of it. Like, I mean, I don't know what you, dear watcher, listen to, but if it is like, I mean, you know, there's a chance Sophie's produced it. You know, she can't say for too many artists. But even though she was doing all this work on the music industry side of things, she was, like, the public still had no idea who she was. Like, there were rumors. But even, like, there's a video from, like, one of her, like, live shows, DJ sets from the Product era, where she got somebody else to pretend to be her manning the boards, and then she just dressed up as a security guard pre-transition and just walked across the stage. Just 'cause she could. You know? And she really played with it, and I said she did like an interview with the BBC over the phone, and she had like a baby voice filter on it. So it's like, you know, or like whatever. And when they asked like why did you do that, she said, "I've got a cough," you know, in the little like baby voice. It's just, I mean, come on, iconic. But yeah, so she puts out the album Product, which is pop art. It references Andy Warhol's Soup Cans in the lyrics, which is like one of the most famous pieces of pop art there's ever been. It's called Product. It was sold, like when it came out, there were these like glasses that said like Sophie in massive letters on top. There were like bubble jackets and things. They were like themed to it. Like there were products for Product. Like one of the songs called Lemonade was in a McDonald's ad. Which like, before I encountered that, I wasn't like particularly like, I mean, I guess I was sort of against the concept of artists like giving their songs for advertising just to make money off it. But then I was like, wait, no, that's the complete and absolute execution of her vision. And now I just see it as like, you know, everyone deserves to make money, so, in this unjust society, so, there isn't, you know, I'm glad that they can do it that way. But yeah, and so I think on vinyl it was released as like a bunch of like singles, a little box of them. Can't be a fun way to listen to a full album. Engaged maybe. But anyway, so then I guess there was like silence for a few years. I mean, I wasn't like paying attention at the time, so I don't really know. And then in 2017, I think, she drops a music video on her channel where not only are, oh, and all the covers for the singles for Product were pictures of these like digital slides, which she found deep in some internet rabbit hole. That's neither here nor there, I guess. But, oh, and I should mention that the single version specifically of the song Bep, it's longer than on the album version. There's a little bit of a, like, fake water noise at the beginning. I wonder if I'll get copyrighted for this. But anyway, the song, some are like instrumentals. Oh yeah, and what I was going to say about it is that, so that earlier stuff was like more or less club music. Well, not really, but like vaguely. This is now like deconstructed club music. So it's like taking the elements and then rearranging them into like pop songs. With like the vocalist, Sophie sings on nothing. Sophie does not sing on any of her music, with the exception of the next album, where she sings like about half of it. It's all other people. I think Girlfriend of the Year, GTFO or whatever. Wait, no, that's not the right abbreviation. Does vocals. Nahabika Iqbal, if I'm pronouncing her name right, does a few vocals. Some people who don't really make music. She loved collaborating with people in and around her in her personal life, which is something I've taken from her, because it is really the most fun way to do it. And so it like all the vocals are these like super like pitched up things. There are a few like instrumentals. There's all kinds of things, like it gets like kind of celestial at times. Other times it's like bzzz, like electric saw noises or something, all synthesized. Like it's all like she'd apparently kind of annoy people around her by like she'd take sounds from the natural world. Like I think there was one story where like she and a friend were swinging on some rusty swings, and then she noticed the squeaking of the metal on the metal, and then like just began to like imitate that in some of her music. Or that other times she'd be at the beach and would annoy the people she was with by like throwing like 100 pebbles into the water to like get the exact splash sound so she could recreate it. There's another artist, I can't quite remember, Jimmy Edgar, something like that. One of her last singles was with him. Just a feature of a track off his upcoming album, which was released after she died, called Metal, the track. But I think they both kind of worked in tandem on their own projects to sort of synthesize natural sounds. And he went about it in a really like mathematical, scientific way, whereas she, I guess, used her ears more. I mean, not to say Jimmy wasn't. I don't really know the details, but I don't think she was quite as mathematical with it, But anyhow, so Product happens. There's one single called Just Like We Never Said Goodbye, which was more of a normal leaning song, which her next album would have as well, where there's like one song that is a bit more, and it's all sort of pop music, but it is like out there pop music. It is like abrasive at times, dense a lot of the time. Like it's not, what you're going to hear on the radio at all. Although she's surely produced stuff that has been on the radio. Without a doubt, but yeah, and I think that was a more of a like normal song, which then got pretty big and, brought more people in because it's, they're more accustomed to that format. And I'm close friends with the members of the local Montreal trans girl alt-rock band Puberty Well. Shout out. I have their CD, but don't have it right here with me. Their upcoming single is going to be I think it'll be out early next year. It's going to be a cover of Nothing More to Say. I can only film for half an hour, it's kind of pretty annoying. But, he said that, what Sophie and him had been discussing for quite a while was that she would do a pop album, an esoteric weird album, a pop album, an esoteric weird album, and repeating the cycle for a very long time. And this first album is, of course, a pop album. And then she made an esoteric album, and she was working on her next pop album when she died. And they aren't going to put out any more albums of, like, other songs cobbled together. It'll just be, like, singles or EPs or whatever else. So, two pop albums and an esoteric album, which is, like, the magnum opus that is really, the biggest piece of her legacy, artistic legacy, in some ways. But one of my friends has a really cool dad who, so she grew up on Sophie, which is crazy, because, like, we're, like, pretty much the same age. So it was, like, brand new. And her dad was already onto it. That's pretty crazy to me, like, someone growing up on Sophie, but anyway. So then, as I was saying a little while ago, a music video suddenly drops, like, 2017 or so, on our YouTube channel. And whereas before there was not, like, nobody, unless they knew her in real life, knew what she looked like. Like, no information was about her. There were some rumors, but that's it. And in this video, she is lip-syncing to the first single from her second album, It's Okay to Cry, the song, not the album. And she is, like, completely naked in front of a green screen, and a green screen of, like these, like, beautiful, like, clouds and, like, night skies and things. Very ethereal. And so it's, like, nothing to, like, you see your, like, nipple near the end. And so that served as both a public, like, okay, this is, like, who I am now, and also a coming out, because right around that time in her personal life, she came out as trans. And what A.G. Cook said about it, in a beautiful and touching... The way I found out the most about what she was actually like as a person, because she was quite private, was through the what's the word? In memoriam? No. The thing, the pieces, whatever, that people she worked with, wrote about, and knew her very well, wrote about her after she died. Those have been my windows into, like, what her character was really like. Smart, funny, all those kinds of things. And so she was very, I guess she really carefully considered the visibility. Because of course, like, she was consciously very invisible beforehand, and then it was, like, full visibility here. And then, I think the album she died making, she was going back to invisibility, because she didn't really like the visibility, the end result of it, too much. But, yeah, so, it's one of my favorite music videos ever. You just see, it's the only time she did anything like that. It is, like, an actual, like, straightforward, emotional pop song with like no, it's her singing it. The like her voice is not pitched. It's like basically it's straight. Like it's not even like, there isn't even like echo on it. Towards the end, someone else begins singing on it, doing like backing vocal things. And that is Montrealer Cecile Believe, who prior to that had a project called Mozart's Sister, who I think I found a CD not too long ago, which I have in the other room, not with me, where they're called Shakespeare's Sister. So I'm pretty sure that's where she must have gotten it from. But she was doing, I guess, sort of early hyperpop, like bubblegum pop, or bubblegum bass, or whatever it's called, stuff beforehand. She worked at and named Montreal's Phonopolis record store, and so on and so forth. And she's great. Really fantastic. And I know some people who were at some parties with her back in the day as Mozart's sister. And she was like too cool for them, apparently. I remember puberty well. But, yeah. Sickness, as I said. So this album is more or less I think she's not like written in as like a feature, interestingly. The album has no features, although the only other person who appears on it is the sample of singer Coda Banks, from a different Sophie collab, which I guess she just sampled and used in one of the songs. Sampling your own work. Simon & Garfunkel did that in the 60s. One of the earliest samples I know of. They sampled Sounds of Silence on one of their tracks. But I just played a bit of the recording back. But, and that's unrelated. And so they like, the two of them put this album together. Like it's a product mostly of Sophie, but Cecile Believe is very much in there, because there are elements of this album which is called Oil of Every Pearl's Uninsides, which doesn't make sense, really, unless you really think about it. But what it means is oil of every person's insides. So it's like, I love every person's. She said in an interview that she was really high and thought of that, and then told all of her friends, and they were like, that's stupid, don't do it, and so she did it. Which I guess tells you something about what she was like. But she, apparently her brother and her would smoke weed and get like deep into sound. But anyway, so yeah, because with Cecile Believe, I mean, they've got a lot of like production stuff in common. She is less, I don't want to say less cutting edge, because that feels rude. Although it probably is true. She's still sort of underground, unlike Sophie. But, I think her main focus is the lyrics. She's, her lyrics are really incredible. And I think Sophie brought her in to help achieve what she wanted to, with this album specifically. Because on the other ones, her lyrics are, I mean, she has a vision. I didn't really understand where she was coming from until I began listening to like Depeche Mode and stuff like that. Because they're not, I mean, like, minimalist isn't quite like what, like, one's first impression of them. But, I mean, they are carefully written, obviously. They're, I don't know quite how I describe them, but, she doesn't use too many words. I guess she gets it down to the bare essence. But it isn't, I mean, because that's like, you know, what you want to do if you want to like write poetry. But, and I wouldn't say it's really poetry, although there is definitely poeticness throughout. But, yeah, and so this album, I Love Every Person's Insides, which, I'll show you the cover. The cover is actually my phone background, as you can see. But, and so it's the only cover of hers that is not, like, actually has her on the cover. Although it's photoshopped and everything, which is very intentional. But she's big into fashion as well. She did a lot of wonderful photo shoots. So this album, it's sort of, it's a concept album about self-acceptance, like realizing, what's the word for that? Self-actualization, to some degree. Like it's not very specific. But it is about being trans. But not in a way where it's like, the word trans is never like said or alluded to even. It's more, it goes deeper than that. It's operating on a level. It's really operating on a deep level where it seems like it doesn't make sense, but then there's a point where it just clicks and then you're sobbing. Even though it's like abrasive, well, not always, at times abrasive music. Very abrasive and all that. But so it starts out with this song, It's Okay to Cry, which is the only, like, you could say ballad she ever did. The only one, like it's not even, like, there aren't even two. Which goes to show how intentional she was about everything. But, and even though she played a lot, like most of the stuff she played at her live shows, she did not release, and remains unreleased, and she knew it. But yeah. So then the second song is called Pony Boy, and it's sort of about well, okay, It's Okay to Cry is about, I mean, I don't want to like say what it's about in it, but like, you know, the premise, I suppose, is like realizing that like you know, it's okay, you're safe, and you can cry. 'Cause that's something a lot of people, including me at times, need to, in this emotionally repressed society that we live in. And I mean, this is like I've been to England, and it's even more over there. You know, the emotional repression can be really brutal. And then in Germany, like all over the place. Europe in particular, I guess. But I guess the genesis of capitalism there has something to do with it. But anyway, so opening yourself up, and then there's the track Pony Boy, which is about like kinky sex, I suppose. Then there's the track Face Shopping. These three were all singles, I believe, and have music videos. That were, and I think they were conceived of from an early, I think A.G. Cook wrote that when he was shown the demos for it, they were already, like, it was the first several song they were in order already. Like, it was very intentional. And she, yeah, and face shopping, I guess it's like editing yourself and controlling your image. Anyway, if you've heard it, you know what I'm trying to do there. But and that's a variation of that same beat is the one that Kendrick Lamar was rapping over on a Vince Staples song. She said in an interview. But she, and then it is what might be her best song, her singular best song, the track Is It Cold in the Water, which is beautiful and haunting, and I think it's like your, well, and then face shopping is also like how your image is altered unconsensually to some degree. Like, it doesn't say any of this, but it's like the subtext, I guess. And Is It Cold in the Water is like you're now in a new situation, you're in a new situation. How does it feel? Which, like, you know, now you're like, is it cold in the water? Like I mean, that's like that's getting on poetry. I mean, that is, you know, like the level she's operating at here. And it's beautiful. It's like one of the most beautiful. It's incredible. And then there's a track called Infatuation, and then another one called Not Okay. Infatuation, who are you? I want to know. So, which is, I guess, about yourself then. So I guess, like, It's Okay to Cry is like you're accepting the emotions. Ponyboy, don't quite know how it fits in. Or you're having fun. Face shopping, you're like changing yourself. Is it cold in the water? You're changing. Infatuation, who are you? I want to know. You're figuring yourself out. Not Okay, it's hard, I guess. I don't know that track as well. It's kind of short. And then there's Pretending, which might be my other favorite song of hers. Or no, my favorite song of hers, as opposed to her best. Because they're different things. And this is I think it started out as a 20-second, it started out as a larger track. She really reworked all of these songs quite a while. She wasn't into the concept of an album. I mean, because that isn't really much of a thing in dance music. But eventually she got into it, obviously, because it's incredibly carefully crafted. But this is, she said in one of her interviews that she didn't like ambient music, except when it served a purpose within other kinds of music. That's not like a direct quote, but how she used it, I suppose. Because on this album, and in the next album, and on Cecile Believe's next albums, because they're sort of, I mean, it's sort of a collab album, and so there are two sets of follow-ups, you know, one career cut short and the other going forward. I think she's got a new an album in the works, but they all have these like ambient pieces interspersed by these other, well, that are within the context of like other songs. And this one, I think it was like a 26-second snippet, slowed down until it's a 6-minute thing. And it's like it's sort of like imagine like how classical, it's sort of like it's almost like classical music, where it's like so many like tones and things sort of like just sort of like washing over you, you know? But the sound design is insane, because it isn't like something you can normally make, because it's like slowed down to such a degree. but it's so dense and there's so much happening that they're like things are happening, even in that, and it's like, it sounds like whale song at times. It's like, let me just like it's calming and unsettling, well, more unsettling, but it's a true full experience. And then that goes into a material, that pop song. Just check it's going. Yes, it is. That pop song, where it's like a big, it wasn't a single for some reason, but it should have been, and it's the biggest track off that album by a long shot. And like Nothing More to Say, it is like, you know, what sort of like more people hear and then they're like, oh, I should check this artist out. And that's the album. And then, which is about, I guess, like, you're not a boy, you're not a girl, you're immaterial. And then there's a long closer called Whole New World, Pretend World? Whole New World, yeah, Whole New World, Pretend World. Oh, then there's Pretending and then there's Pretend World. Okay. So, like, so as you can see, and it's sort of like more of a, like, dance thing. Like, it's not dance music, but it's got more of that language. And it kind of just beats itself into submission until it kind of just the album ends in like synth sparkles and everything. Cause it's all glittery, it's all sparkly. It's got like metallic sounds, but then it's got like sonic sugar. Like it's all over the place and it's loose, but it's tight and concise. It's many things simultaneously. It's an incredible piece of art, and yeah, so it's operating at like a different level, and so a lot of trans people have really bonded to it and die by it, from what I understand. But it's an incredible piece of work, I guess, kind of esoteric, quite esoteric. The only one album of those she made, unfortunately, because it's what she would seem to be best at. But not to say she was bad at the other stuff. But yeah, and then it was released on vinyl a few years later, and digital download, obviously, and on streaming. But it has yet to come out on CD, with the exception of it being in a some kind of super expensive, barely ever sold, like 600 copy, little like purse thing, with the remix album, and it's the bonus disc. And the remix album is really interesting, because she did it entirely. So it's another extension of her work, and it is probably her most major work within dance music. It's like, what? Somewhere between like around like 1.5 hours. Interpolating ideas from like Motherland all the way up to now, or up to like 2019 or 18 or whatever. Also Oil of Every Pearl, the original one, was nominated for a Grammy, which is crazy, because they don't know anything about music. And nobody should care about them, because it's just the establishment rewarding itself, basically. And add in all the racism and so on and so forth, and classism that you want to with that, but into the mix. But so yeah, and Cecile Believe is a feature on like basically the entire album, although it doesn't say so. Like, she's singing all over it, Sophie is singing all over it. But anyway, the remix album, it's got a few extra features, which are people she's going to be working with on her next, on the album the album Sophie, it's called, self-titled, that she died while making. Though it was not meant to be her last. And yeah, and it uses some more of that ambient stuff, and it's like a, I guess it's a pretty, it's on like the more weirder experimental end of dance albums. But it's like a pretty major work in that direction as far as things go. And then so she was working on new music, then the pandemic hit. And she was gonna do some kind of, because all her live shows are DJ sets. I mean, there are some videos of her like in like a full like fancy dress, singing like "It's Okay to Cry" with like a microphone, but otherwise it's all like, you know, she's behind the boards, which she kind of resented because she wanted to interact more with fans. That she was like changing and developing her live thing. She changed right around when she was making the remix album. She changed the stuff she was working on. I think she like switched like software program, which when all of your music is made in a software program, it's like that's a major shift. And you can hear a change around that time, because Product and the album, the original album, Oil of Every Pearl, they're a lot of like individual sounds carefully like built up into songs, whereas the remix album to some degree, and then the posthumous album, it's more, there are less elements. It's more simplified, as far as things go. So she could actually like dance on the stage with her friends and have fun without having to like pre-make the whole thing beforehand. It's gotten pretty darn chilly, and I think it's getting into like -20s territory, which it doesn't do here during the winter too much anymore with changing global weather patterns of no specific cause other than the 77 biggest corporations. But anyway, it is tomorrow. I had stuff to go do. Go to a friend's house for a video watch party thing. But I want to get this thing over with, so, and not lose track too much. So we continue. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, where I was at was that so she did the remix album and put that out in like 2018 or 2019. I can never quite remember if Oil of Every Pearl came out in 2017 or 2018, but the remix album came out the next year, so either 2018 or 2019. But yeah, and there are CDs of it, but not of the other one, apart from that really rare thing with it, which I mentioned. But anyway, we were in 2020 now, and Cecile Believe put out her first two albums under that name in 2020. Both are about 26 minutes long or so, and she's put out another one since then in 2024, which is about 19 minutes, so I guess in my personal judgment for what makes an EP and what makes an album is an EP is under 20 minutes. Even like 19 minutes 30 would be an EP in my eyes. Because some artists call like 35-minute albums EPs when like, okay, it's not as quite as like conceptually crafted as their long form like full CD length projects, but I don't think it's anything to scoff at, you know. Boy, my throat hurts. But anyway, and in one of the singles, so Cecile put out two albums. The first one's called Made in Heaven, Then the other one is called Plucking a Cherry from the Void, from like later on in the year. They're both around the same length. And they both have like one or two like of those like ambient pieces. You can hear a lot of the same sonic tools, I don't know, as are in Sophie's songs. Like there's a particular like way she uses auto-tune in a part of that song Immaterial, which you can hear on the vocal of one of Cecile's songs. Like there's a lot in common, although I don't remember if I mentioned it or not, but Cecile does at times, she isn't like strictly synthesizer in the way that Sophie is. Like it's mostly synthesizer, but she does use actual instruments occasionally. But Sophie appears in the first music video for the first album, Made in Heaven, very briefly. and yeah, I think between the two albums, I think Plucking the Cherry from the Void is like, honestly, Made in Heaven feels more like a mixtape by comparison. Even though they're like, I don't think they're considered, maybe they're both? I don't know. But Plucking the Cherry from the Void feels like a short album, whereas the other one feels like a mixtape. Maybe her best song, the best song to come out of that entire year for her, I think, is this track called Bitch Bites Dog. The last track except an instrumental on Plucking the Cherry from the Void. The first thing you should listen to if you want to get into her, easily. And that track is, it's just incredible. But and you can just see like why she loved making music with Sophie so much and why they got along sonically so well. They're really inhabiting the same, I mean, they're approaching it slightly differently, but they're really inhabiting the same like sonic universe, technique-wise and everything. But anyway, back to Sophie. So, yeah, I think I was saying that she only did a few live shows in 2020. I think Setlist FM or whatever it's called, had 4. And of course, so sad that she never made it out of the pandemic. Not that we're out, but out of the stage where the governments are pretending it doesn't exist anymore, I suppose. And where you can actually meet people in person and, culture isn't like locked down in the same way. But, yeah, that didn't happen. And so in, I think, the summer of 2020, she put out this thing on, I think it was live streamed on some other platform first, but it was uploaded to YouTube, where, so the only thing there beyond, like, her music videos and, like, full album streams. But, yeah, she was gonna do, I think in years prior, she'd done a live set for this. I don't really know what it is, some kind of event or rave or art show called Heaven, with the second E being like a 3. It's all caps. And so this one was called Heaven Suspended, because, they couldn't have it in person, I imagine. And so Sophie uploaded, or did the DJ mix that she was gonna do. Well, she did like a 20-minute set, where it's all like everything, it's like one song basically, everything flows into each other. And put it directly online. So it's sort of through her official channel. So it's sort of like an official thing. Like, she doesn't have like live albums or whatever, I don't know to what degree those are even done in. I mean, Daft Punk have a live album. But I don't know to what degree, though, that is really a working concept in dance music, you know. And so it has it remixes a few different people's songs. I think a song by Liz, a song by Shy Girl, and things like that. And then there's a everybody got to own their body, something like that. It's got the body mix of a new song called My Forever, which will be on the album that'll come out after she dies, where it's just like one or two of the lines of that song kind of taken out of context. But it's so there's something cooking, I suppose. And apparently it isn't on there anymore, but when it first aired, and you can see a snippet of it online, it contained a teaser at the start or the end for what was going to be her next music video. Now, this did not come out. You can find, like, bootleg, what's it called? Leaked versions of it online. But she filmed and had made the music video for what was going to then be her next album, which was called, Transnation. I guess being about being trans or something like that. And the music video is interesting. There are a bunch of stunningly beautiful shots, which the like thumbnail of that video that's on YouTube remain, of just Sophie standing like lit with like some lasers in like a cloud of like pink and purple smoke. Very, very magical and everything. And then it's with like a group of other women, at least some of them trans, I don't really know, including this woman who was her girlfriend at the time, and who not too long after that, I think, they broke up, and then she began going on all these spats, which she's still going on, from what I understand, about I mean, just being really transphobic to Sophie, even though she's a trans woman herself, but that's how it goes, you know. When, I'd blame society. If she isn't the one to be blamed. But yeah, and so that never came out, and I think the whole album was scrapped as a result. Though you can see, there are some nice, I mean, those ones of like Sophie standing alone are really nice. There's some where they're like in a pool with her with like these other people, and they're all like, you know, dressed in like towels and kind of sitting on the side, and like Sophie just looks really like cheerful. And then there's all these ones where they're like around like a car, and Sophie is like pouring like bottles of milk onto them. It's just weird and not really her. I mean, like there's stuff in like the Pony Boy video, which I guess is in that same sort of like sexual universe, not pouring milk on people, but that thing is done very. This I can see why she didn't put this thing out. It doesn't have the tact, I suppose, that she, or maybe to some degree the artfulness that she normally exudes. And anyway, so that thing was teased but did not come out. So then, yeah, she does like 1 or 2 more live shows in person. A few clips exist online, but that's about it. And then in January, and then like 1 or 2 singles come out where I think one's like a remix of someone else's song, and then the other one is that track Metal with Jimmy Edgar, which is just a single from his album that, because Sophie features on a song, but the album came out a bit after she died, which, so early January, 2021 now, a few singles come out. And so her old, I forgot to mention that Product and all that is on a different label than everything else, basically. Which I think is on a label called Transgressive. That one is on one called Numbers. And Numbers puts out a few more things. So they put out a track called Unisil, which I forgot to mention about Product. I don't know if they were ever on the actual CDs, but at least there were, on some editions, there were these digital downloads that you could get. You could maybe buy them online as well, I don't really know. I bought them online eventually, but after she died, so I don't know how things are with that, and long after the album came out originally. But there were 2 extra tracks, which were not on the album, were not on streaming, you know. There's an instrumental one called Unisil, which is the deconstructed club is sort of getting back into club, but still kind of deconstructed. And then there's one called Get Higher, which has, unlike all the other ones from that time, has a prominent male voice. And they're like, get higher. And Unisil only was put out as a single, backed with I think in an interview, Sophie had said that someone had asked, are there going to be any remixes of these Product songs? And she was like, no, nobody will remix them unless it's Autechre, who she loves and is very influenced by. And Autechre, I guess, finally finished their remix of Bip all those years later. And so that comes out. It sounds very different. It's cool, though. It's very cool. It sounds a lot less like Artificial. And the groove is, like, slowed down. Also, I used to listen to Product commuting a lot, but I think I tired myself out of it in that setting. But it's such a wonderful little album. Some would say compilation, but I'd say it's an album. And the track Vizzy, V-Y-Z-E-E, V-Y-Z-E-E, I think it has one of the best grooves that Sophie does. Like, you don't really think of Sophie, like grooving isn't really like her thing, but she can do it well. Very, very, very well. And Fizzy, which is what I think it's about, Lemonade, that's one of the best ones on there. But anyway, so those tracks come out and are on streaming. And I think a vinyl release comes out, because I said the original thing of Product was like on vinyl was a bunch of singles. Like, it wasn't like, you know, it wasn't like one of these things, you know. And so it came out, and apparently, from what I can tell, it was in the same kind of design, where it was like visually meant to be added and included in the little like single box that Product would have been. And then I think, yeah, it came out physically. And the night that it came out, that the remix of her first single, second I guess you could say, came out, kind of bringing her career full circle in a sense. I guess from what I've been able to ascertain, so she was living in Athens at the time, in Greece, on the Mediterranean, in Europe, uh, in Afro-Eurasia on Earth, in the solar system, in the universe, like we all are. And yeah, I guess it was a full moon that night, and she was having a party with her friends, I guess at her place? I don't really know. Well, I guess it was her place, but maybe it wasn't. It doesn't really matter. And she went up, very early in the morning, like 2 a.m. or something like that. She goes up with her friends to get a picture of the moon. And I guess she is like trying to take a photo of it, and then slips, and then falls 3 or 4 stories onto the concrete, and was still alive at that point. So her friends, I out of morbid curiosity, I looked it up on Google Maps, and the building seemed to have, I guess they were on the roof, maybe they were on a balcony, I'm not quite sure, but it's like, like the building is like a rectangle, and then there's sort of like a central kind of gap, and then there's a sort of courtyard in the middle of the block of other buildings. I don't know if it's really a courtyard, but it is like an empty space. Not that I know what's in there, but like it isn't a building. In between all the other buildings, but like there isn't like a road in. So I think she fell down one or the other. And her friends, I guess, got to her. It took, one of them said, like something around like an hour for the the emergency people to get her out of there, which time is of the essence at that point. And I think one of her friends she was with her soon-to-be married wife, Evita Menij, who appears on the posthumous album, doing a few vocals, and I think she told her to stay with us, but the fact that she was alive is pretty heartbreaking. Just after having made all that brilliant music, just imagine. Just that fall must have felt like forever. And it's like, wait, this is really happening. And then the ground. It's pretty petrifying. But, so she was taken to the hospital, like, way into the night. And so it wasn't the fall that killed her. What killed her was she was running out of blood, from what I can tell. And and Greece has for many years had a severe issue of not enough blood donation, so the hospitals do not have a large enough blood supply to be able to do what they need to do. And I guess they ran out of the correct blood type for her. And then so several of her friends were with her, and they were like, please take our blood. But, I mean, she was queer and a lot of her friends were, and so I guess some of them were gay. And because of, I guess, just leftover AIDS fears from the 80s, they're like, no. So then she runs out of blood and dies. Just like that. Like, there's some artists where it's like, oh, someone hated them and then killed them because they were that famous already, or like they had a drug issue and then overdosed or something. But then there's ones like this, or like just like a plane crash, you know, where like there is no lead up to it. It's just you're going, you're going, you're going, you're going. Which it goes to show that life shouldn't be taken for granted, you know? Because, I mean, the one prerequisite of being born is that you die. Like, there's, like, the one thing. The one thing. And it... like, nobody expected it. Nobody... like, her best work was probably yet to come. She was still on the cutting edge of music. It's pretty... there's some friends of mine still haven't gotten over it. Like I gave like a bunch of like music files to a friend recently. Was like, oh, should we put on some Sophie? And they were like, I can't, I'm gonna cry. And like she was about to like perfect her live show. She had ideas for, I learned from one of those, maybe A.G. Cook's memorial essays or whatever, that one of her very, very, very favorite books was this one from the 70s, this science fiction thing called The Passion of New Eve, which I read earlier this year. And it's incredible. It's insane. It is aged like fine wine. The United States is collapsing into sectarian anarchy. What's going on? And that's in the 70s. But it's and it's like the character is like gets forcefully transformed against their will from a man named Evelyn into a fully normal biological woman, not like a trans like a woman, you know, in a cis way. Called Eve, and it's just I copped a few of the closing lines for some poetry. But it's an incredible book, and she wanted to do some kind of musical adaptation of it, and I can just see, like, it is so, like, I can see what she loved about it. Like, it's really, yeah. But anyway, so she died, and one of her siblings, like, 3 weeks beforehand, had just passed their, like, learning to be a lawyer or something, and they just passed the bar exam, and they were gonna help Sophie with like the legal side of her stuff. And 3 weeks later, that's it. She wanted to do another, I think, something I've seen like a few different artists talk about in various ways, but hasn't come to fruition yet. But I think it is something that will, at some point in the next decade or two, be developed. Is Sophie wanted, because as I mentioned, she had like huge reserves of unfinished songs. Like, she'd apparently be the kind to like get idea, put something down, new idea, put something down, like not really like want to like finish the stuff completely. Unless it was like going to be put out, and she was very, very specific about what she put out, which is why she has such an incredible legacy. But she wanted to make some kind of platform online or some kind of way where fans can listen, instead of like just them wanting to hear her music and obtaining it via leaks or like recordings of live shows. instead having a platform where she has control over it, where she can put out her unreleased stuff in a way where it's interactive for the fans. Something like that. Like how it would have worked, I don't know. But I can't remember, I think Adrianne Lenker of Big Thief also talked about something like that somewhere. So I feel like it's gonna come at some point from the artists. I don't know when though. And she was on the forefront of that. Like she was really like, she didn't care about like what people had done before. She was really, she was forging her own path in a complete and true way, in a way that you don't see happen very often. And that's one of the things that makes her so special. But yeah. Yeah. And so I guess I think her brother did Benny Long, he did an interview around that a few months later saying that like she had these massive reserves and they were going to look into what they could put out. But it was only going to be stuff that she wanted released, which I think is the most respectful way to do it. Because a lot of artists when they die their music doesn't get treated with the same respect that the artist treated it with, I suppose. And so shoddy things get put out or get put out improperly. And correcting those mistakes is a big hobby of mine on my music blog. Look up the Ultimate Albums blog. I was silly and filmed everything and finished it, and then put it on my computer and then accidentally deleted it. So here I am to restart from where I left off here. Just go through it a bit more quickly. So she died, put out that thing, that live stream thing, died. And so the album. The single, it was like radio silence for ages, and then her brother had said there was a bunch of stuff in the vault, so it was going to get put out, respectfully. And in the summer of 2024, the first hints began showing, and then the first singles came out, and then the album came out in September. And so this was it was made, so this is a pop album, in the sort of like product, where the songs are more individual, as opposed to really like crafted into a larger piece. And it was made, a lot of it, in like pandemic house parties. And so it's really, yeah, it's like a 2021 pop album. It's not like, it's not hyperpop at this point. But there's no other album like this. There are 4 distinct sections, which she planned according to the vinyl. It was almost finished by the time she died. It was like, she had the track list, all the layers were there apparently. A few songs were in demo form. Most of the vocals were there, or some version of them at least. I think one verse was missing in a song, that's it. So it was like pretty darn close. Her brother just finished it up according to everything they'd spent years talking about. But a lot of people thought that like, oh, it's super unfinished, but I think it's just different to what she was doing before. But anyway, and there are less elements because she changed her software, so it's a little bit simplified in terms of there's less going on, but she's using everything very effectively, of course. And so the opening section starts out with, like Product, all the songs that have singing on them, which is everything except the intro, which has barking dogs, is other people. Sophie is going invisible again, which I guess works out in hindsight, because she can't really promote it being dead. But yeah, so it starts out with like an ambient, so there are 4 sections. There's no other album like this whatsoever. I think it's great for like nighttime drives. But the first section kind of continues where Oil of Every Pearl left off. It's a sort of like unsettling, vaguely like emotional experience at times. But it's still a bit different. It starts out with a foreboding, ominous ambient piece called Intro, the Full Horror. And then that goes into a rap song. Like, this is an album of genre jumping, which will become clear if you haven't already heard it. So then it's like showing the breadth of like what she can do and do well. And so, yeah, then it's a rap song called Raw, featuring Jazzy, who I think is like an R&B person who's done like songwriting for Beyonce. And it's good, and very good. And then there's Plunging Asymptote, which was released beforehand in a different mix in 2019. Featuring Juliana Huxtable. This is one of my friend's favorites. And it is, I don't know quite what to call it. It's marching, it's intense. Her lyrics get at something deeper in their own way. And like a plunging asymptote is on like an XY graph. You've got like, let's say like one arm of the graph. And the asymptote is when a line comes closer and 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 closer, but never quite touches it. It gets infinitely smaller and smaller, the space between them. And so she's getting at like bigger, deeper stuff within like pop music, basically, through these different means. And that's one of them. In a plunging white wall, white noise, more torturous than silence. It's quite something. I don't know what genre to put it under. Then there's like an ambient, but it's kind of intense. And then there's this ambient spoken word piece about how like the universe is made up of numbers. It's quite an experience to listen to. So it goes from like unsettling to fun rap to stressful dance stuff to like peaceful meditation to pop, because then the next section begins and it's like full pop. It's 3 songs. They all feature the group BC Kingdom and then one other artist singing. And first of all, it's Kim Petras, and then the other 2 have Liz. And the reason why with Kim Petras was the first single. It's just a fantastic song. And the other 2 are pretty good too. Some people don't like them, but whatever, you know. I really enjoy them in terms of like showing what Sophie is capable of, because not a lot of people can walk all these different lines so successfully. So then that goes directly into the club section. So it's sort of like, I heard someone describe it as, you've got sort of like all the first section is like all the like emotions of life beforehand. Then you're at the pre-game to the party, which is the pop section. Then you're at going to the club. Then you're at the club section. Then you come back from the club, which is like the art pop songs at the end. And yeah, so it's the club section. It starts out with a song called "Do You Want to Be Alive?", which is a bit of a gut punch, considering everything. But yeah, and then it's got a cool vocal performance by Big Sister, and then it's got then like the club section really starts, and the first few songs, including that one, all sort of meld into each other. And so there is Exhilarate first, I think, which has a lot of changes. Then there's Berlin Nightmare, which was a single and is just like hard, fast, like pretty consistent banger. Then there's Gallop, which has a lot of changes too. And then there's a little sort of it's almost like an interlude, though it isn't labeled as such, called One More Time, kind of taking us out of that into the art pop section. And these songs all feature either Evita Minich, who's Sophie's wife-to-be, or this artist called Popstar, who does not exist otherwise, which is pretty fun. I think some people found like one Instagram account that might be connected to it, but like there's like nothing on there even. And even that's a pretty tenuous link. So yeah, so that One More Time kind of goes from like, it starts out as like just like rumbling like sub bass, and then the bass kind of gets like more and more and more forward and clearer and crisper, and then it gets into this like little like section where it's like an actual normal beat, and then it just ends. And then we're in the art pop section, and it starts out with a track called Exhilarate featuring B.B. Borelli, another single. And this, I think Sophie considered putting out all the tracks as singles, which I think had been a very cool move, considering how genre jumping this thing is, but they didn't do it. Kind of wish they did, but whatever, you know. And this one is about like partying so hard that you don't know if you're gonna survive, which is like one of the exact lyrics, which is also a gut punch. Knowing what happened. But, yeah, and it ends with these sort of, it's one of my favorites, it's got kind of, oh, whatever, doesn't matter. It ends with, like, Star Wars, like, space gun noises, like, you know, like, tew, tew, tew. Doing that a few times. Then it's into Always and Forever, with Hannah Diamond, who's wonderful. I love her album Picture Perfect, a concept album about photography, because she's a photographer. And I think one of the very last albums to come out on PC Music in like 2023, with a guy from the 80s who did like Scritti Politti, I think, producing. Which is pretty darn cool. And it was like so modern. It doesn't seem old at all. But yeah, and that album really feels like it captures like the feeling of like joie de vivre and like new love and that kind of thing, even though it's not always about that. But so, yeah, Always and Forever, it's just a beautiful song. Then there's My Forever with Cecile Believe, single, which is incredible. And I think in Always and Forever she talks about, like, tracing a line through the stars with your finger and stuff like that. Like, it's just like there's, like, a profound and deep and universal sense of beauty to a lot of her stuff. Not right on the surface, a lot of the time. And she, yeah. It's really beautiful. I think it's part of what makes her special. So yeah, and then it closes off with a song called Love Me Off Earth featuring Doss. And a lot of these people didn't hear the finished versions of the songs till after she was dead, which is pretty sad. Hannah Diamond had a really touching story about making that song with her. She apparently went to Sophie's house in the 2020 during lockdown, and they drank iced coffees in her bedroom and had hung out, and then began making the song together. And then she left, and the last thing she ever saw of Sophie in person was her like walking or riding her bike away or something. And Sophie standing in the middle of the road with her bubble jacket, smoking a cigarette, and just had effervescent cool, which she didn't seem to have to put any effort into. And then it was just like, you know, video calls and stuff. And that's the album. There's nothing else like it. I was really obsessed with it. There's a video on my channel about it. Besides all the autobiographical stuff, I suppose you could call it. But, yeah, and so then it's sort of like, what's next, you know? Because they're going to put more out. And in this last summer, 2025, the answer came. And so when Product was released, there were two tracks which were like download bonus tracks. If you got like a download link with some CD editions. I don't think any of them were actually included on the CDs. but I could be wrong. One of them was Unisil, which came out as a single right before she died. The other one was Get Higher. So, like, it was finished, it had been out for years, but, like, not on streaming. Not, like, as easily available as everything else. And, so they did a 10th anniversary version of Product. I'd made kind of a similar version, not knowing that was going to come out. Adding, like, a few of those tracks onto Product. I put them in, like, the middle, but they put them at the very end, but then moved, just like we never said goodbye to, so it's still the closer. And I think that's a very respectful way of doing it, because it leaves, like, Sophie's sequence pretty much intact, even though, while still adding to it. They did not use the single version of Bip, though, or the remix of Bip by Autechers, so it's still slightly incomplete, I guess you could say, but that doesn't really matter. And yeah, so there's Get Higher, Unisil on there, and then a track which she put out an unfinished version of on SoundCloud at the time that Bip and everything was happening. But she finished it finally in 2019. It's called Ooh. And so she was using her different software at that point. It sounds like a tiny bit different, but like it's, you know, still completely in line with everything else. And that was a new single as well, so there were 2 singles. And that was that. And it came out on vinyl as like a full disc for the first time. So it's a nicer listening experience than, you know, having to flip over every song. And I was going to get a CD, but didn't get around to it. And yeah, I think BC Kingdom hinted at there being more stuff. I think there's surely like a bunch of features. She did some work with Lady Gaga for her Chromatica album, but that didn't come out. And they might do some EPs of like leftover songs and things. But it's you know, a mystery as to what the next thing to come out will be. But yeah, and so that's Sophie. Been very influential. So yeah, so this was gonna be a guide. So if you want to get into her, I think if you like club music, then you should listen to the maybe start with Nothing More to Say. That's good. And then the club section of the posthumous album. So that's like in the back half from Do You Want to Be Alive to One More Time. And then if you want like an experimental club album, then you've got that the Oil of Every Pole remix, non-stop remix album, which is a much longer piece. Maybe go with that actually. Go with that. Although it is on very much on the like experimental end. But it's great. Go with that. If you like really like carefully crafted, concise, artistic albums, then Oil of Every Pearl is where you should go. That is her magnum opus that will last forever. Yeah. If you like pop, then listen to the posthumous album. If you like hyper pop, then listen to Product. And there you are. And yeah, so I hope my love for her has come through. She's been a very big influence on me. I hope a documentary comes out on her someday so it can like show who she was in visually. I mean, there's a very brief like one, like 5 or so minutes by some German agency, which is on YouTube, and I do recommend, because then you can see like, you know, her demeanor, how she talked, her like workspace and her house, and her ideas, as brief as it is. And yeah, she left an incredible mark on music, and there's a friend of mine who like still can't listen to her stuff because this makes her too sad that she died so abruptly. But yeah, I guess a few just random things about her to make her seem like more of a real person. She loved ice cream. She, A.G. Cook and Charlie XCX went to some kind of Mediterranean island at one point to work on some music with like a Bluetooth speaker and a vocal mic hanging from a light fixture. Really the most down and dirty setup you can imagine. And at every possible opportunity she would be like, hey, let's go get ice cream. Which is just so cute, you know? And her photo shoots are wonderful. You should check those out. She did a talk with Nabaha Iqbal about music in 2019, and she played a bunch of songs that are important to her. That got put up on YouTube like a few months ago. That's highly worth checking out if you want to hear her talk about stuff. And what else? She apparently had just a really sharp sense of humor. She was really loving and kind. She'd check on her friends even when she wasn't doing very well herself. Her friends were a very big part of her life, I think. She liked collaborating with them more than anyone else. And and she yeah, it's a shame that she didn't, like, her best work was probably still yet to come. At least best besides Oil of Every Pearl. More esoteric albums. And yeah, a great loss, but everyone else is, you know, there's so much music. I really would love to learn more about her spirituality. She mentioned in one interview very briefly with like this AI robot thing that she meditated in the mornings. But I'd love to learn more about that. And yeah, I suppose that's it. Can't think of anything else to add, so I hope you like Sophie, and I hope you have a lovely day, and enjoyed listening to me ramble on about things in my head. So then, bye!